Are you a student, mentor, or parent that loves robotics? Then you're in the right place. Up-to-date info on all things robotics. This is the RoboZone Podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. The RoboZone Podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world.
Hello and welcome to the 70th episode of the RoboZone Podcast. This podcast is for Tuesday, August 14th. We are off vacation, and we have some of our favorites of the RoboZone Podcast for interviewers returning this week to give us some insight and some advice on teams getting ready for the fall, now that school is coming back in session, to get ready for the upcoming season. Over the next couple episodes, you will notice some changes with the RoboZone Podcast. We hope you like the changes that we're going to make to the RoboZone Podcast, and you can always provide us some feedback. So please reach out to us, let us know what you'd like to hear, and we will make those changes and give you the best experience and education that we can while we're waiting for the season to start. We hope you enjoy this interview. It was a wild one with Scott and Andrew, so let's get to the interview.
The RoboZone Podcast is brought to you by AndyMark.com. Your robot parts experts.
And with the RoboZone Podcast, this is a first for the RoboZone Podcast, and that is we're trying to record video. Hopefully this works, and it's going to be shown on YouTube. If it doesn't, it's a failed experiment. But, with me tonight, I have two of my favorite interviewees, and we'll go through some introductions first. So, Andrew, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Andrew Spiece. I am 2016 Woody Flowers Award finalist. I'm also working with a bunch of different teams in Genesee County area, 314, 5114, 7211. Just who knows where I'll land this year and who I'll be helping directly. But I'm still around, training mentors, helping people and doing whatever I can.
And we have Scott.
Hey, this is Scott Stap with Team Fridgebot. This is our night off, so I'm actually hanging out at the barn and doing some cleanup work out here. And I, too, am a mentor.
Oh, yes, you are, sir. And he's got a nice, if people can see the video if this works, he's got a nice, I think it's a 69 Charger sitting in the background.
Yes, it is.
Up on the lift doing some work. So thank you guys for coming on board. The summer's a hard time to get together. Everyone's trying to clean things up, but we're 3 weeks away from the school starting here in Michigan. So we're going to start getting prepped up, and I want to get these guys back on board and talk about what you guys did through the summer, what teams should be doing to get ready for the start of the school season, because around the corner we're going to have Deep Space come around and knock on our doorstep as I see someone going back to Andrew's video. So
I have a visitor.
Andrew, tell us what you've been doing for the summer.
Oh, this summer I've been, one thing as a mentor, this is your time to spend some time to relax. You have to take the time. So take some time off robotics, visit with your family. So anyways, that's what I've been doing. Taking a break, reflecting upon last year, and reflecting upon the things that I did with students and how I'm going to be better at it this year. And
Scott, you have not taken a break, because we talk pretty often. What have you been doing with Team Fridgebot over the summer?
We've been doing all sorts of things this summer. We started off right off the bat with a parade. We had our electric car in the parade. We had 4 different teams from around Shiawassee County represented in our float. We went to Maker Fair down in Detroit. We just this past week was the Shiawassee County Fair. We had 6 different teams from around the county hosting the booth at the robotics, or at the Shiawassee County Fair. And we heard from all the people that visited, and they love to see that kind of stuff. So if your team is not getting out in the public in some sort of presentation mode where they're there long enough to talk to people, you need to do it, because it was incredible. The number of people coming up saying, hey, we're watching you in the newspaper. We love what you're doing. We've been building wheelchair robots. We've got a cooler bot. We drove that around at the fair. We gave out about 9 cases of water to people over 2 days. 2 of the hottest days last week gave away water at the fair. So a lot of people, were refreshed and got to see a Fridgebot in action.
A literal Fridgebot in action.
Yes. In fact, even this week, my new lead programming team member, Devin Bates, he's over at Kettering doing the autonomous camp. They've got a week-long autonomous camp, and he is having a blast. He's meeting kids. He's working on a team. Just in the first day today, he said he was learning a ton. I stopped over there and had some dinner with him, and he's having a blast with that.
Well, what we look to see, that puts a lot of high expectations from Team Fridgebot for the autonomous piece of the next game. If you're stating that, so Andrew, did you get to go to Maker Faire this year?
No, unfortunately, I was doing training for my work. I wanted to go out Sunday, but I had put a 6-day weekend and a trip to Boston the weekend before. I was exhausted, or I was going to make it. I felt horrible. I really wanted to go out there, but I know it's great. I'm working with the high school in the Henry Ford Museum, Henry Ford Academy. So I get to see the Henry Ford Museum quite regularly. So, no, I know how great the program, how great the fair is, and I am going to try to plan that better next year.
Yeah, I think we need to take more teams out there. Maybe have a full-blown competition if we can get enough teams out there. I think they have the space for it. So, Scott, can you tell?
Setting expectation.
Yeah, I know. Well, I love to set high expectations. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about Maker Faire and how it went this year.
Oh, it was awesome. There were not as many teams in the tent. They've actually got a tent with a full field set up there. A lot of teams chose to actually have things inside of the museum. So you got to see teams with full displays set up in there. You had teams doing hands-on crafts. You had mobile, what do I want to say? They were kind of like robots, but it was like a mini float. They were driving around in there. Got to see the Martians, of course. They had their time machine out there. And what?
Did they have the cupcake and the spider?
Oh yeah. And I asked them, if they're going to put a temperature gauge in that cupcake, because I think sometimes you can see steam come out around the neck hole. It is one hot little ride there. But Team Fridgebot actually took the microphone and basically hosted the competitions inside the tent, and our kids were having a blast being mock DJs at the event. So, and we got our new girls driver, a lot of practice inside. So it was an awesome event all the way around.
So basically, you're saying you're going to have the best girl driver next year, and you're going to have the best autonomous next year.
Oh yeah. Well, we're going to the Grand Rapids all girls event in October, and Abby is going to do some pretty nice driving there with all the time she's been getting.
Well, I think, Scott, your team is going, and Andrew, maybe one of your teams is going to go. I know my team's going, but we're headed to Robo Day at Fair State here in just like 7 weeks, right?
End of September.
Yeah, end of September. Andrew, are you taking a team there? Are you going to come along with one of our teams?
As we get a little closer, last year I was the announcer, and I kind of helped them plan it for the first year. So I have a feeling they're going to come to me again for something. So last year I was able to get a couple backup robots up there to fill the roster. You need so many teams in order to have an event, and it has to fall on a certain number of teams. Otherwise, it's the event just doesn't work out. So usually what we'll do is there's a lot of teams in Oakland County and stuff that have a second robot that they can kind of donate for the event. So last year I took the Killer Bees robot and Fenton's robot up there, even though their team didn't go. So that's what I might do, is I might reach out to some teams locally to see if we can help them fill whatever roster they need to do that. I'm hoping it gets full. Last I knew, the last text I got, they had a team pull out, but they're pretty close to being enough teams to go. It's really exciting. I met with Saginaw Valley State, the head of their STEM department recently, Frank Hall, and Saginaw Valley is really, really keened in and really into STEM and supporting First with the state championship there. And they wanted to do an off-season event. So this is really neat because this is ran by a student organization. The event is, which is really great to see a bunch of college kids still giving back to high schoolers after they get into college.
And Scott, you were going to say something?
Yeah, the Team Fridgebot is taking the trailer over, and we've kind of put out the feelers saying, if you want to go to Ferris, we know it's a long drive, and you're in the Shiawassee, Genesee, Lansing area, and, you don't really want to hook up your 9-mile-a-gallon pickup truck to your trailer, we'll gladly put your robot in our trailer with us
Good.
and
So
take
this
it over.
year, we got to get them to Corona. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Owaso's already taken theirs with us. So we're going to have 2 robots in there. But, we got enough room in there.
And it's going to be my first time going up there. I know I've interviewed the people from Robo Day last year, and we've already done that episode this year. That was a couple episodes ago. For anyone that's listening, go back to that one, listen about Robo Day and the things they have planned for Ferris State University. Sounds like it's going to be a killer event. It's a fair distance from where we live, so I'm trying to arrange a place to where at least I can go up the night before and get the trailer and everything up there, and then the kids come up on Saturday. But I'm sure it's going to be a blast. I heard when I interviewed them, they're trying to take the robots out on the ice last year, so maybe we can get into that ice rink this year. And after this, I don't really need that robot anymore, so I'm going to tear it down. So let's go, drive the wheels off it, literally. So maybe. Sounds like fun.
Oh, yeah.
They gotta let you drive it.
Oh, I've driven. Oh, see, I have a certain bet going on. It's not a bet. It's a gentleman's agreement bet, whatever you want to call it, with a certain Hollywood team that their mentor says he can outdrive me, and we've been talking smack to each other since the Power Up season, and he says he can drive circles around me, and we're going to settle that.
You might want to watch it. He was a pretty decent driver back in his day.
Yeah, well, I'm the best driver on my team. I'm just saying. As the drive coach, I've always said that if you don't drive it, you don't know what it does. So how can you properly tell people to, your kids to correct things if you don't understand how the robot works? So we'll get that one out of the way too, and we'll make T-shirts and la 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 la. So thanks for giving us some updates on what's going on in the past. We talked a little bit about Robo Day. So let's talk about some things that teams can do right now. We said here in Michigan we're 3 weeks away from the start of school. Andrew, give us a couple things that teams should get ready or should be doing right now to get ready for the not Power Up. We're going to Deep Space, right? Tell us about what they need to get ready for Deep Space. Give us some hints.
Well, first thing is the fall. You have to figure out how much you're meeting in the fall, right? And your schedule for the fall, making sure you have space for your team to meet in the fall, and putting together a schedule and communicating out to your parents. They want to know what they're signing their kid up for. They want to know what kind of schedule you're keeping. Also, one thing I always did was I took into consideration fall and winter sports, right? So our goal is to get as many kids exposed to First as possible. So you want to really watch your schedule as you plan in the fall. You can't work around everything, but there's a couple common ones to kind of watch out for when making your schedule. One is band. I think every year 30 to 40% of my robotics team were band students. So I would highly recommend reaching out to your band director, looking on their band website, making sure you schedule your meetings around band. I mean, you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache. Another one, football. I usually watch to see how many football players I get and whether I get a JV or a varsity kids. JV tends to fall on Thursdays. Varsities tend to fall on Fridays. So, really getting in a sense for what your fall schedule will look like, because you do want to train your kids, get them prepared, get them ready for the season. There's a lot of things in First to learn. Plus, I guarantee you at least half the teams in Michigan need to fundraise right now. So
they should have already been doing some of that already. Hopefully,
all the teams in Michigan need to be fundraising right now. So I would highly recommend start reaching out locally, put a plan together, get someone in charge and someone who is going to be the communication on your team for partnerships and sponsorships in your local area. Start divvying it up to students. Figure out a way to coordinate your students to get out there and help you with it. I always say that potential sponsors want to hear from students, but don't want to hand them a check. So they want to hear from them and what you're doing, but you want to always have a parent with them so that the parent can accept the check.
So, right? Scott, Scott, before we go any forward, Scott, do you have any kids from band on your team?
Yes. About 3/4 of my team is band. So it is a definite must to coordinate with the band. And one of these days, somebody's going to figure out the correlation between band and robotics, because it's definitely there. And I don't mind it because band kids are great. But you definitely got to coordinate. And then the other thing is you got to consider, and we ran into this last year, and I've heard of numerous teams running into this, our competition season runs into festival. So you're going to have bands going to festivals. You need to clear it with the band director if your competition is going to interfere with that.
Just find out what festival is and don't compete that weekend. Yeah. That's my suggestion.
Yeah. So, and
schedule around it.
The problem was last year he had 2 different festivals planned and he didn't know which one they were doing. Of course, it fell on the weekend of Kettering too. So, what do you do? Unfortunately, he was saying to my team members, you have to be at festival or you fail band. No consideration there. So it is a graded deal in the school. So you will lose your team members to festival if you plan it on a competition week.
I fully agree with both of you guys. 90% of my team is in band, in marching band, and then they have symphonic and jazz and all kinds of things. So what I did is one of the parents, I got a list of all the activities that the band's going to do for the year. It's already been planned out. Luckily, our band director is that meticulous of everything that they're going to do, every parade that they're going to be in, and I already have it, so I'm planning my stuff around that stuff so I don't run into it. Andrew, you brought up about fundraising, so maybe you guys can help me with this because I'm only going into my second year as a head mentor. The Chrysler, the Daimler Chrysler, the Ford, and then the GM sponsorships. When's that paperwork have to be in? Do either one of you guys know that?
In the fall here, they should be reaching out. They tend to be last minute. One thing I would do is for your Chrysler mentor can talk to the Chrysler contact. I believe, even though Pam Williamson isn't doing Lego League anymore, I think she's still the Chrysler contact. So I would reach out to Pam or have your mentor reach out to Pam. He can access the same site you can as the team leader and be able to update those documents. And he might have a better sense from Pam than you will because she works there, right? But definitely reach out to Pam if you have any questions from Chrysler. And then GM, there is no paperwork. You're either a GM team or you're not. They might ask for something at the end of the season. And then that might have changed. That says
how do you get on to be a GM team? I mean, is it closed? It's open?
So GM team, you need to have a mentor that works for GM on your team to advocate for you and go talk to make that happen.
Well, that's for all three, right? All three of those, you need to have a mentor on the team or a dad that is. He has to be a registered individual on your team as a mentor, correct?
So all of them will tell you they want them to be a participating mentor as a significant role on your team, right? And if you don't have one, like let's say that person leaves, what are you doing to find a new one? They're going to want to know. Ford and Chrysler are pretty straight up about Chrysler mentor, Chrysler sponsorship, Ford mentor, Ford sponsorship. General Motors tends to be a little bit more of a gray area, but you would want to definitely talk to anyone. I would poll your parents. One thing I always did was interview the students at the beginning of the school year. And when I interview students, I interview parents. 10 minutes with the students, 10 minutes with the parents, and we talk about the entire season. And I always ask them, where do you work?
Scott, are there any other recommendations you'd give to mentors that are looking for sponsorships from those big corporations?
Like Andy said, you got to have an in. And it's not just GM, Ford, and Chrysler. That's pretty much any of them. Ask all your parents where they work. Ask them if they've got an in. Ask them if they even know some of their customers, maybe the customers at the place is. Now, we have dealt quite a bit with the Shiawassee Economic Development Partnership. Justin Horvath is an amazing resource, and he is our liaison to the corporations in our county. So, and every county has got a big corporation someplace that they can talk to. So don't just say, hey, I got to have GM, Ford, and Chrysler. You might want to get a smaller one that's a little more tied to your neighborhood and knows that they're going to get employees from your base. You are creating some incredible ready to go to work kids that can do CAD, they can do programming, they can do CNC. In our case, they can do welding, they can do aluminum welding. I've got kids on my team that can go straight from my team and go into a $13, $14 an hour job that's not McDonald's. So that's an incredible resource for organizations in your area. Get them to pay for it.
Right. One. If I could give any advice for people that are out there, ZF Davis is a big corporation. They used to be TRW, now they're ZF Davis. I know they have a big sponsorship program. We got one for this coming year. We've already filled it out. We got awarded it. It was right around $2,500. It's a nice chunk of change for your season. So ZF Davis is open for everyone. I heard last year they were giving $3,000. So 25 is better than nothing.
It's almost real.
The BAE grant.
BAE grant.
Yep. I applied for that a couple years ago and got it. Wasn't able to keep up on it. Well, plus I left the team, but it's definitely something you want to apply for. One thing to always point out too is when you're applying for a grant, save your write-ups for the next grant you fill out. Just a little tip. Write it up on a Google Doc or on a Word document and save that document for next year. It'll save you a lot of time.
But you make sure to change a couple words in case the same person's reading it.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's in college, all over again. So thanks for some updates on funding, some suggestions. What about, and we'll start with you, Scott, outside of this, the sponsorships and recruitment, what other things, should teams be purchasing some things now to get ahead? Some raw materials, some Robo-Rios if they need one. What do you typically do as a head mentor right now? Do you start purchasing some parts now?
Well, number one, you need to go through all of your storage. You need to go through all your backup stuff. Allison Niesler does an awesome organization thing that they did at the mentor camp this past summer. So if you missed it, you missed a lot. You need to come next year. But Allison, they mark all their stuff. If it's suspect, they mark it and they put it back at the end of the season or right now. Start pulling that stuff out, check it, test it. If it's junk, get rid of it and then replace it so that you have it. So you need to go through your shelves, make sure you've got all your bolts stocked up, make sure you got all your small parts, all your the little gears for the Versaplanetaries. Those always are broke.
All of your electronics. I would point out your electronics. If you find that one of your electronics, like a motor controller or Robo-Rio or something's bad, contact the manufacturer. Sometimes they'll help you out.
Oh wow! Yep.
Yeah,
I've had some manufacturers replace some stuff that is blatantly our fault even, and they just want to make sure everybody's happy. So the other thing that we like to do is the high schoolers help with the middle school team. Every single year, there is some sort of tie-in between the middle school team and the high school team. Just watch. You'll watch this year's game, and what robots are made, there'll be functions on that robot that translate into the high school game. So if your high school kids help with your middle school team and help them build that stuff, they'll already have a leg up on the competition coming up. So it is advantageous to do that. We also put on programming classes, CAD classes, program kit. Oh, and some build type classes in our area. Try to organize those and do those in the off season and in the fall schedule. Those are always excellent to keep the brains going and get the juices flowing. First choice, Andy Mark first choice. It's always before the competition. You have to do that. That is not, that is where you get some of your best stuff. Our gyros came from that. Our pneumatic stuff, our whole robot pneumatic system came from first choice and the voucher system. So,
and take that as a piece of advice for anyone that's listening to this. As a head mentor that missed it last year, and I'm pointing at myself, I missed first choice because I just missed it as a rookie mentor. When I signed up, I went in there and first choice was already being sent out, and they were doing the second
veterans
round,
missed it too. Don't worry.
Yeah, and that's another point too. If you miss the first round, you still have those points. Those points did not go away. You can still get parts. You won't get the juicy parts, but you'll still get parts.
You mean you won't get the best parts? Juicy parts makes it sound like there's liquid in them or something of that nature.
Well, if you hook the pneumatic stuff up to the wrong faucet,
A homemade bidet, and we'll just leave it at that.
Okay, now we're crossing the line.
Yeah, we're crossing. Let's ring that thing back a little bit.
Homemade squirt gun right there.
Yes, squirt gun. Yeah.
But you did get some first choice parts last year.
I did,
but you wound up getting them from other teams that had them because they were able to get them from first choice in previous years.
One thing you can do too, if you're really digging into that first choice, find out what's best, your best bang for buck. There's certain items that due to the cost of the item are a little more advantageous to get, even if you might not need it right away or might not even need it this year. We've even gone as far as like getting extra of something because we know we're going to need one next year, just because it was a better deal to get it then.
It's always good to have an extra radio, right? Those things never crap out at all.
Always good to have another radio. Always good to have another RoboRail.
Well, and one thing that's always on the first choice, and if you're a rookie team or even a second-year team, I recommend is get those fluke meters, those fluke voltmeters. That's nothing that you're going to be able to afford later on. 200 points is dirt cheap for what those meters are. Those are some amazing meters, and they're really doing robotics teams a service by offering those.
And having you can never have too many batteries.
Yeah,
exactly. That is true.
Yep.
So that brings up a good segue. I have some batteries from last year. What should I be doing with those? Should I go through and test them? And how would you do that, Andrew?
Well, it's going to take some time. Well, I have a whole presentation on that actually. But basically, you need to check the voltage, check the current, and then do it after 12 hours. Check the voltage. You need to keep a chart, right? You're gonna have to put a load on it in order to check it. There's different devices you can get to do that with, but you're gonna want to have a system in place. And this is a really great learning lesson for the students and a great opportunity for students to learn how to charge the batteries, how to keep them charged, how to properly test them, because that'll pay off dividends in the pit, right? This is your chance to show them. If you are doing it yourself and your kids are not involved, they've missed out on learning. You truly missed the point, right? Like, something.
I got a good question though. I got a good question, and I'll ask you this one, Scott. Isn't this a good time for a team to look up for a pit concept of how they want to lay their pit out? Isn't this a good time to do that?
Definitely. Yeah, because you get into build season, you're not going to have time to do that. You are definitely not going to have time to do that. We tend to keep it simple, but we developed our pit layout. We developed what we take to competition years ago in the off season. We've got a fantastic big pit cart that was all welded together. It's got drawers. I mean, anybody wants a bolt, they can come over to our pit, pull open a drawer, and know exactly what they got. That was built in the off season. That started our whole welding program back in 2015, I want to say. 2014, 2015 is when we built that pit cart. So if you take your time, oh yeah, everybody needs a good and make your robot cart expandable or adjustable or modifiable, because every year it's different. One year you'll have a tall robot, you want a short cart. Another year you want a tall cart because you got a short robot, So
that's definitely something I always recommend teams to do for a preseason. If they want to do a preseason build, make your preseason build help you in the long run, right? Like, yeah, you want to go build another robot, I get it, but you really need a cart. You really need a battery cart, a charging station inside your pit, right? These are things that you can build out of aluminum even if you want to. You could get donations. I highly recommend reaching out to different places that might sell 80/20, that might be able to donate some to you. Always go for the donation first. See what you can get from organizations and companies donated. This is the time of year to reach out to those. Go take a list of all your sponsors from last year, and if any of them have anything you might be able to use, I would contact them and say, hey, can you help us out?
Yeah. Now, to keep in mind, too, if you're going to hit your local metal supplier, don't walk in there and say, hey, I need a 20-foot chunk of high-quality aluminum, and I need it in this dimension, blah, blah, blah. They're most likely going to say, well, give me $150 and you can have it. But if you walk in there and say, hey, we're the local robotics team, we don't have much money, would you mind giving us some of your drops? The end pieces, the leftovers. They'll probably say, have at it. They can write it off, and they supporting a great cause.
That's exactly.
You're doing a favor for them too, right? You're help clean up their shop for them too as well.
Yep. While you're at it, see if they have any steel or anything really heavy metal that you can go recycle.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea for a fundraiser. Yeah. Oh, and for fundraiser, if anyone's need fundraiser ideas, a really good one, and we're going to do this for the Fast team, is we're going to have a bottle drive the weekend after Labor Day. Cool. So we're going to announce that now. We're taking trash bags and we're putting these flyers on the trash bags, and we're delivering them to house because we live in the country. We're delivering them to their mailbox and saying that on this day we're going to come by, and if you'd like to give some cans, just drop it there. We're going to take a couple trailers, and we're just going to circle the rural community and just grab them, take them up to the Walmart, and deposit them. And I think we made $675 our first one this year.
Look for metal out by the road while you're at it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You hit some sort of holiday or some sort of big weekend, say Super Bowl maybe.
It's a great idea. Super Bowl can be a little
that's
cold.
during the season, though. That's during the season. This is the best time. It's not snowing. It's not raining. Well,
but it's one pickup and probably on a Monday. Yeah. So it's a pretty good return. Even if you just said, hey, we've got a crate sitting outside of our build center. Please bring your cans and bottles there and just drop them there instead of taking them to Myers.
Yeah, and make sure you set up with wherever the place you're going to return first and get permission so you can set up. We set up in their parking lot, and then people could deliver them to us too. So it's a good idea. And Walmart's always a good one, but they do require, at least ours does, a form to be signed, filled out and signed because they have so many people that come to them for doing fundraising. So you don't mess around with the Girl Scouts at the same time they're selling those cookies. You might get a.
I was going to say,
be careful, they'll chase you down. Don't tick off a Girl Scout.
You might
spend cookies.
You spend more money on cookies than you made in the fundraiser.
Well, we got 50 boxes of cookies.
We got snacks for the season.
Yeah, there you go.
An event.
50 boxes of Thin Mints. I'm in.
What'd you say, Scott?
Have you ever been to the Mason event? The girls here and sell cases of cookies. Cases. They are smart. They show up at a robotics event with Thin Mints.
I think we bought 5 or 6 boxes and we were hiding them in the pit.
Yes.
But yeah.
Great event. I love them.
Better frozen, but we didn't have a freezer. We'll work on that for next year. Any other leftover thoughts you guys could think about for teams before I let you guys get out of here for teams that should be getting ready to do things while we're waiting for like Robo Day and then the all girls event that Scott, referenced?
So I think there is one thing that we should probably point out, and that's recruitment. Recruiting students. And this is different for every team. Like, you have to really take a look at how many students you as mentors are ready to actually give a good experience to, right? Take some time and actually give that some thought, and really think about how many students you want on your team. And then set a goal for the number of students, and then set a goal for yourself on how many you want the percentage of students on your team to equal the percentage of students in the school. What I mean by that is, if you have 50% girls in your school, your goal should be to get 50% girls on your team. That's just my personal goals that I always set for myself and when I was a leader. And one thing we have to remind ourselves is that students, an 8th grade student that you're recruiting to come on as a freshman, the last thing that they're doing to come on your team is to come hang out with me. They don't want to hang out with old men that are mentors. No offense. They want to come be on a team with their friends, right? So who better than the recruit than the students themselves? So I always talk to my team, and when we did recruitment, I tried to give them the philosophy of, I want you to go talk to these kids about coming and being on the team with you, right? An 8th grade student could care less about scholarships right now. They don't care.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like, they want to know that they have someone to sit with at lunch next year, and that they're not going to get picked on in high school, right? Like, those are the things that they're worrying about right now, not scholarships. Their parents are. I get that totally, and nothing against parents, and some kids are, and I'm probably generalizing. But in general, when you want to start looking at diverse numbers of students, and students that are, I think one of the reasons why we get a lot of band students, because band students tend to be driven, right? And tend to already kind of know what their future is going to be, and they kind of know if they want to be an engineer, right? And they kind of already thought about that. And I think what we have to do is we have to think about the students that don't know what they want to do yet, and they just want to get through high school, right? Like, so taking some time to have the students really go and talk to students at the middle school or talk to students in their school, your best way to recruit is to have your students do it. I usually would have a sit down with them and get an initiative together. Is how I would usually do it. I would have certain ones that I would use to go do presentations with. Since I was always looking for girls, I always used girls, to be honest, because girls want to be on a team with girls, and boys want to be on a team with girls.
And we'll leave that at that.
Right. So I tend to, if I get girls on my team, they're going to be the people that are going to help me recruiting. It just tended to work out better that way. And my goal, I think the last year on my team, I was about 40% girls, and that was my goal, was to get to 50. I knew it was going to be a lofty goal, but that's the goal, right? Like, you want to get to that same percentage of your school to really be representative, and you want a diverse team, right? You need people with different outlooks on things, and people that think from different parts of their brain. And when you have a set stereotypical student on your team, you're going to get the same decisions being made all the time, right? So I encourage teams to really take a look at how many students they can handle, and then really give some serious thought as to how they recruit. The dog and pony show to an 8th grader doesn't mean anything. They don't care if you went to the World Championships. They really don't care that you even travel, right? Like, they literally are just worried about who they're going to sit with at lunch, right?
And Scott, do you have anything to add to that?
I think you gotta start recruiting right now before school starts. There are some events happening, like in our school, we have what's called Cavs Day. Our team mascot is Cavaliers. Cavs Day is when they open up the school and they get everybody's schedules, get their names, get their student IDs taken, and we sit in the hallway with a robot, and
That's
we
great.
make it do some cool stuff. We make it go sideways and lift things up, and just make as much noise as possible to get their attention. Everybody that comes over is going to want to drive the robot.
Mm-hmm.
Ask them, hey, do you want to drive the robot a second? Sure. Okay. Put your name and email address here on this list.
Perfect.
Now you have a list of people that are semi-interested in robotics. You might only get 10% out of that list, but you've got a list. And
Here's
it's
the tip.
a one-day event.
Use a digital form, not a piece of paper. One, try to use your phone, use something, because you're not going to spell it. You're not going to be able to read it, right? Like, and always try to get a parent too, right? If you can get a parent and a student email address, you're sitting a lot better, or even a phone number. You're sitting a lot better trying to recruit those kids.
But Scott, your team's pretty. I've met all the kids on your team. You're pretty much a half and half. You have 50-50, don't you? Girls and boys on your team.
Yes. So yeah, and it's awesome. The girls are incredible. We
put them in charge,
and that's one thing that I keep thinking about when Andy's talking about. They already know what they want to do. Truthfully, the kids that I've seen come into my robotics team don't know what they want to do. They just know that they're interested in robots. The transformation that I see happening in the robotics, I've seen people come in and say, "Oh yeah, I'm planning on being a psychiatrist when I get older," are now in biomedical engineering. Yeah. And they still working with people, but they're putting their mind and their tools to work. A Bridgeport, a lathe, those are life-changing tools. You put a welder or a saw or a drill and some rivets in a kid's hand, and all of a sudden they're building things. I actually had one kid at the end of the season point at the robot, look at it with almost tears in his eyes and say, "I helped build that. Yep. I can't believe that is something that I helped with," and that's something that, the kids at the demo, you show them your robot, that, they're a little overwhelmed. They're not going to realize that it was actually the kids that built the thing, and that's just plain cool. So,
and Scott, I got overwhelmed because I built a robot with my team and I got teary-eyed, and I'll just leave that at that. As a rookie.
Yeah.
The one thing that we a lot of times the school and we all fall into is the kid that this would be good for them, right? Like this would be good for anybody. And that you get out of that whole trying to pick a student that would be good for robotics. You really this would be good for anyone. You need to get them in there, right? And then inspire them from there. That was kind of the approach I always took. People would kind of, I got this kid, he's going to be really good in robotics. I'm like, all right, well, why don't you find me that kid and then get me 2 more?
Yeah.
Pick me for every kid you think will be good at robotics. Send me 3 that you don't think that'll be good for robotics, right?
And let us convince them, right?
One thing that led you into this line of talking that we're doing right here is what do we want to do in the off season or in this coming fall? And one thing I'm thinking is presentations. You need to get in front of your community groups. You need to get in front of anybody you can and get the kids to present the robot as a unified unit. Have 3 or 4 kids put together a presentation. They're going to need these skills for competition, but it's also life-changing. I've had kids that walk in that will not talk, will not get in front of anybody. You get them talking about the robot, they will talk all night, So
yeah, that's a
get
good
them
point.
in front of your business organizations, get them in front of your Knights of Columbus, get them in front of your veterans organizations, whatever you can do, get them in there, AMVETS, whatever. They might not get money out of it.
Yeah. And then find ways to set yourself apart from the other people asking for money, right? Like set yourself apart from the local softball team, soccer program, baseball team. That's why a lot of times we change. I always suggest teams change the word to a partner rather than a sponsor. You want to get a different type of relationship with them. You want to be a little bit bigger. It's bigger than just a sponsorship. You just don't want their money. You want a relationship with them. So I always encourage teams to kind of think about when they're going out to present and that sort of thing. Really finding those ways that you stand apart from the other programs around. Like, what is gracious professionalism? What is competition? Right? Have your kids be able to talk about that because no other sport can talk about it.
Right. And it is a sport, by the way. I have that constant battle with my school system. So I want to thank you guys for coming on board tonight. I have one really important question when you leave, and we're going to start with you, Scott, because you're over there on my screen. Scott, did you hear that they are not going to have, at kickoff, they are not going to have pre-built game pieces?
Virtual reality, dude.
Yes. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about that as a head mentor?
I think that last year's game would have been completely different if they had done this, because you can't get out there and touch and feel the field elements. In particular, the ramp that you had to drive up to get up to where you hook, that material is not translatable over a virtual reality world. I am not going to know that thing is slippery as heck, and that my Mecanum wheels aren't going to climb it as easy, as I did by going to Kettering and actually getting out there and feeling the parts and seeing what it is. Even at that, the field elements were not complete, they were still prototype stuff, but no, I
think part of it has come from,
so, I don't know.
So from my perspective, I think it's come from a few different things. One, a lot of the kickoff events weren't able to put together a field that was identical to the real field anyways. They were building wooden pieces. Right. They weren't the same materials. They were getting as close as they could, and they were using them for practice fields, which was great. And it really gives you a sense once that practice field is up. But in a lot of cases, it was subpar, right? Where a lot of what you need to see during kickoff are the views you get from certain areas of the field, right?
That's a good point.
So if you look at it as, I'm really hoping that you can stand behind the glass and be able to see to the other end of the field and see what kind of views you have, right? That has been huge in the last couple games on what you can and cannot see on the field, right?
Steamworks.
Yeah, if you get stuck behind an element,
Steamworks
you
was
can't
a big
see what
one.
you're doing.
Yeah.
You've got to put a goofy camera somewhere on your robot to try to see where you're going. So that, I think it's going to be a benefit in that area where, and I think Scott's made a point where there are going to be some times where you're going to be struggling to figure out how your wheels. But to be honest, you can go out and buy one piece of plexiglass and take a feel for it and see what it's going to be, right? Like,
but that wasn't plexiglass last year, though.
That was weird.
That was nothing like plexiglass. It was a very unique material.
I keep going back to 2009 in Regolith. If 2009 back when you had to try to basically ice skate on the field while you're driving
around. Lunacy, right?
Yeah.
Why is he bringing that up?
And you know what? They didn't have the right field pieces there when we did that, and everyone had to go out and buy a piece of Regolith and put it in their shops. And I think First is trying to find a way to make this more scalable, right? Like,
yep.
Kettering's going to build field pieces anyways, and then what happens is some people find out and they start leaking what the field pieces are.
Yeah, that's what the email said, right? It was to try to make everything a little more fair. So does that mean we're going to get rid of bag time then? That's my next question.
Now you're pushing it.
I know. I'm not going to start that.
Though I'm all for it.
Yeah, we'll do a whole episode on that. We won't.
Well,
I
think what the veteran and experienced teams have shown you is that bag time doesn't matter.
Yeah,
there are teams in the United States that have a totally different robot when it comes to world championships from the first event that they put out.
We had a different robot from first to second event 2 years ago.
30 pounds at a time. It doesn't matter, right? Like the teams are already competing like that. The teams are already planning that way. It's just a matter of logistics, right? And whether your team has the resources to keep working for 12 weeks.
Right. And I think that's a good note to end on because we'll go an hour and a half at this, and I gotta chop it down to 45 minutes.
You started the question at 9:00.
I know. We'll earmark that for another discussion. So, Andy, tell us who you are again as you sign out and how we can follow you since we don't have a single team that you're associated with. We'll just follow you. So, hit it.
Well, it's looking like I'm probably leaning towards working with Big Mo this year. So, Team 314 Big Mo out of Flint Carmen Ainsworth High School. You can find me on their website, get a hold of them that way, or you can just find me on Twitter at Andrew Spiece, or feel free to shoot me an email. If you Google me, you can find me.
We'll leave it at that before a bot picks up your thing and you get enrolled in a couple
if you can't
magazines.
find me, you're not trying hard enough.
It's hard to miss you. It's hard to miss you, Andrew.
That's not my problem.
And Scott, please tell us who you are and how we can follow Team Fridgebot.
Well, one thing that Andy doesn't ever mention, and I don't know why, he's been an honorary mentor of Team Fridgebot for the last 2 years. So if you want to get a hold of Andrew, hashtag Fridgebot for anything Andrew Spiece. If you want to look him up, just that's all you got to do. We're on the internet. You can find our nonprofit group, Fridgebot Foundation, at fridgebotfoundation.org. But yeah, hashtag Fridgebot. We're out there. You can find Fridgebot News. You can find Fridgebot Fridays on YouTube. Hashtag Shia Robots for our Shia Robots organization that gets all the teams in our county together. We're out there. Thumbs up.
The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by AndyMark.com, your robot parts experts.
Again, I'd like to thank Andrew and Scott for coming on the podcast tonight, giving us some insight on what teams should be doing, getting ready while we're in the fall and school just starting to get ready for FRC season coming up. You have listened to the 70th episode of the RoboZone podcast. You can listen to us on Google Music, iTunes Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Don't forget, we do have a YouTube channel, and the video from this podcast will go up on YouTube as an experiment this week. We're looking forward to creating more videos on YouTube for you guys, for those that want to see a video podcast rather than listen to the audio. So thank you for stopping by. We hope to see you next week, and have a great night.
The RoboZone podcast is brought to you by Kettering University. It's a Kettering-built world. Thanks for listening to the RoboZone podcast with your host, Pete Ekman. Find us online at robozonetv.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.